Okay, and now the next part is critical analysis. Okay, so as I have told you here, what we are going to do is we will discuss the criticisms, but before that, this is a structure. If it is a long answer, if it is short answer, you won't get actually critically analyzed if it is short answer. But even though in the short answer any particular theory is asked, one or two criticism you definitely have to write. Okay, so critical analysis, first we will start with the contribution, and then we will discuss about the criticism. Okay, so criticism we will divide into general criticism and then specific criticism. So if let's suppose the question is asked about historical materialism. Okay, so first what you will do, you will go for the introduction of Marx that we have discussed already, like you talk about economic infrastructure, superstructure, forces of production, relations of production, being, social being, all those things you can incorporate there. Then you will discuss about the theory of historical materialism. Then you will start the CCR. The first C is your contribution. Then you will write the criticism. That you will further divide into general criticism and specific criticism. General means what? This is applicable in all Marxian theories. Marx is generally criticized like this. For example, Marx is only identifying the dysfunction. Marx is only using the conflict perspective, etc. We will come to that. Then specific criticism means if the question is about historical materialism, specific to historical materialism. If the question is about class struggle, specific to class struggle. If it is about alienation, specific to alienation. So here the structure will remain the same for all the question. In the specific criticism it will change, and also this part, theory part also it will change. If the question is historical materialism, theory of historical materialism, specific criticism, historical materialism. Introduction remains same, contribution remains same, general criticism remains same, and then finally relevance of Marx. You will conclude it with the relevance of Marx, that also will remain the same. So this is second part, this is a third part, there is a fourth part. These four parts will remain almost the same, keeping in mind that one long question only will be asked from Marx. Okay, so the chances are very rare that two questions will be asked from Marx. Thinkers, they may ask you 4 or 5 questions, but from different thinkers. Okay, so in that context this approach won't be a big problem for all of you. So this is how we are going to do. So today we are going to talk about contribution, then criticism, in that general and specific, and then we will talk about the relevance. Now tell me, generally what are the criticisms? Marx is generally criticized as a reductionist. Firstly, right, this is the most important criticism because Marx is giving importance to economic infrastructure. He is reducing everything at the level of economic infrastructure. He is talking about change in the perspective of economic infrastructure, the relation between individuals in terms of economic infrastructure, all the social institutions like family, religion, education system, political system, all is reduced into the domain of economic infrastructure, or economic infrastructure is controlling everything. So in that context he is accused of being a reductionist. Secondly, Marx is giving only emphasis on conflict perspective. He is only trying to identify the dysfunctions. For example, family is seen as an exploitative agent. Education is seen as merely creating the labor force which is required for the capitalist or the system. Religion is seen as hurt of hurtless world and soul of soulless condition, and just opiating the masses. It's an opium of masses. Constitution is seen as an executive document of bourgeois. Okay, and the parliament is seen as an executive committee of bourgeois. So everything is seen in a dysfunctional term or by using conflict perspective. But there are functional elements for family. Family is providing a lot of functions. Religion is having some functions like integration. Division of labor also have so many functions. So he is ignoring all those functions and trying to see only the conflict side of any social institutions. Thirdly, Marx is talking or giving importance to macro. Okay, that means importance to society by ignoring micro. Okay, so which thinker you will use here to criticize ignoring micro? You can use Weber, because Weber is talking about using micro perspective, understanding the internal meanings of the individual. But Marx is giving importance to society using macro. And which thinker you can use here in case of conflict, dysfunction? You can use mainly Durkheim, because Durkheim was a functionalist. Okay, so these are the main criticism, and the thing is that in case if you don't know any specific criticism, this general criticism is actually enough for you to write a very good answer. If this three is known to you, any point of time if you can reproduce, first one, Marx is a reductionist. Second one, giving importance to conflict perspective. Third one, you can say giving importance to macro approach. And you can talk about Durkheim here, you can talk about Weber here. You can also talk about the theories which are made by Marx as not relevant, the utopian concept of communism, etc. All these are the criticism. If you want, you can also talk about the criticism on class polarization. It never happened. Instead, this structure is more visible, that the middle class is widened. You can use Weber here again. So if you, I'm sure that we have took up this discussion many times in Marx, and you might be very thorough with all these points that we have already covered in various lectures. So the criticism part will not be a problem. That is a general criticism. Even if you don't know any specific criticism, your general criticism will actually save you, because that is going to fit into any of the question which is asked. Okay. Now, contribution. Although Marxian theories have been criticized on number of accounts, but his contribution to the development of sociological theory, introduction of new concepts and new methods remain unparalleled. Marxian theories emerged as a radical perspective in the understanding of society during 19th century. This contributed a lot towards generation of balanced understanding of society, because it highlights the two sides. Now you can see the other side also. Apart from this, Marxian concerns motivated new areas of research and new streams within sociology. For example, sociology of work, industrial sociology, etc., of their origin to the concerns raised by Marx. Marx's contribution must also be analyzed in terms of qualitative changes in the policies of the state during 19th and 20th centuries, the welfare legislations of labor, changes in the nature of capitalism can be easily be linked to Marxian theories. In this context, it is said that Marx has saved capitalism. Why? Because you can see a lot of welfare policies from the state and also continuous modification in the capitalism, right? Because the capitalist actually understood if things are going like this, if things are going against the workers, there may be a revolution, as discussed by Marx. So the capitalists tried to prevent it by giving a lot of facilities and by continuous modification within the system, like giving education to the children of the workers, the insurance, health insurance, etc. So all these modifications are because of Marx only. So in that context, we can say Marx have saved capitalism. Now, general criticism. Marx is often accused of being reductionist. We have discussed this because he lays overemphasis on material factors over others. He tends to reduce the process of change to changes in productive forces, whereas nowadays the elements of superstructure also has the potential to cause change. Moreover, in the present IT-based society, even the ideas of individual can bring profound changes in society. This is what actually Hegel also saying. It is the ideas, but what is the problem? Problem is ideas are part of superstructure, and Marx is giving importance to what? Economic infrastructure. That is the main problem. Okay. Second, Marx has overlooked equilibrium in the order in society and overemphasizes on conflict. So there is a second criticism, and the dynamism is understood only in the context of conflict, whereas society may change in order to bring equilibrium. Okay, so for example, later we will discuss about Parson. Parson will say there are certain mechanisms in society, and they fulfill needs for the society, and this will keep the society in equilibrium. Okay, now at some point of time this equilibrium may break. Okay, so what will happen if equilibrium break? That means if disturbance occur, there will be a feedback given, and then different mechanisms will operate and fulfill needs and bring back equilibrium again. So here the social change is actually temporary. For example, there was joint family before. Okay, so now that maintained that equilibrium, joint family. But when industries emerged, Industry require, geographical mobility of the people or the workers. So nuclear family is more preferred. So there was a disturbance. So the feedback was given. So nuclear families emerged and fulfill the needs, and then equilibrium. Okay, now with the nuclear family, now also you can see the changes, like now maybe live-in relation or single parent family, etc. Because even the marriage is also a big problem nowadays. Okay, so or if you can talk from other dimension also here, we will discuss this in detail in the discussion on Parson. Other dimension may be like internet emerged. Okay, then a lot of cyber crimes. So equilibrium broke. Then what happened? New mechanisms came, like new law, cyber laws, etc. So fulfill the requirement and will bring back the equilibrium. So society may change to bring the equilibrium back also. Okay, so Marx is emphasizing only on conflict. Though you can talk about Durkheim, so Durkheim is also talking about functions of religion, family, etc. Okay, Davis, and these names you will study in detail in the coming sessions. Durkheim, Parson, Davis and Moore, we will study all these. So that's why I've written here. You can explain it very well once we complete that. Okay, Durkheim, it is coming. Durkheim argued that certain degree of crime was essential for maintaining the social order. At the same time, Marxian analysis of conflict is highly incomplete, as he only talks of conflict at the level of class. A more comprehensive understanding of conflict explains both micro and macro level of conflict. Conflict is not only at the level of class. Conflict you can see at the level of caste, tribes and everywhere. But Marx is only identifying at the level of class. While explaining the cause of conflict, Marx takes into consideration the contradictions in the production process. Whereas, please let me complete it. Huh?
Okay, sorry.
What you're asking?
So I'm saying, sir, could not understand this line, sir. At the same time, Marxian analysis of conflict is highly incomplete, and it only talks about of conflict at the level of class.
You're not able to understand?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm saying. Marx is only talking about conflict at the level of class. Between upper class and lower class, there is a conflict, and that is because of material condition. This is what Marx is talking about. This is very incomplete. The conflict can be for many reasons and in many dimensions. For example, there are caste conflict. Caste conflict is not at all related to economic condition or economic infrastructure. It is related to the entirely different reason.
But sir, when we are talking about Marx, so at that time, the society which we are talking about there, so there is caste, sir?
No, we are just trying to understand what is the Marxian theory. So we are not comparing whether Marx written is correct or not. In that case, we cannot even talk about the capitalism also, because now the capitalism is entirely different. So we are saying there are many other dimensions.
Oh, okay. So you are saying apart from capitalists and the labor, there may be another classes in the society, and they may also engage themselves in confliction with each other. This is what we are trying to say.
No. According to Marx, there are only two classes. That is again we will criticize. There are many other classes also. But even though Marx is talking about conflict, Marx is only talking about conflict at the level of class. That is because of economic condition. There can be many other reasons for conflict. It is not only class. In family also there can be different level of conflict. Within tribes also there are different levels of conflict. Within race also different levels of conflict are there. But Marx is only talking about the economic level. That means the class. Only one dimension. It is a mono-dimensional understanding.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
While explaining the cause of conflict, Marx takes into consideration the contradictions in the production process. That means only at the production process, the contradictions is Marx discussing. Whereas there can be so many other factors also which cause conflict. Marx lays more emphasis on macro aspect of society, ignoring micro or the internal dimension. That means the meanings, motives, emotions of the people. So who's talking about this meanings, or who's the micro sociologist? Max Weber. So you should be talking about Max Weber. You don't want to read this particular line because we are going to discuss Max Weber in the next chapter in detail. So you will be in a position to write from your side. Marx has proposed general theories based on common assumptions, but such generalized theories are rarely applicable in all situations. Postmodernists question the validity of generalized theories and are more favor in micro theories, which are relevant in specific context. Moreover, it is always argued that Marx failed to visualize the postmodern society and his theories cannot be applied as it is. So what we are saying is his theories are actually not applicable in the postmodern society. Yeah, he talked about alienation and he talked about individual also, but that alienation upon individual is caused by the economic infrastructure. He is not giving any importance to individual. He is giving again importance to the economic infrastructure. So if you remember, I have told you, even the capitalist also alienated, and it is because of the system, or it is the structure which is the reason. So individual have nothing to do over there. Again, he gave primacy to economic infrastructure. This point we have discussed yesterday. Okay, so the neo-Marxist, that means the future Marxist, actually modified the theories to suit in the changing circumstances. Okay, so even the critical theorists, that means the followers of Marx only, like Habermas, Adorno, Marcuse, etc., examine the role of elements of superstructure in understanding the capitalist society. So they also incorporated the role of superstructure in the understanding of capitalist society. So I think you can talk about this class polarization. I have not written here, but you can write that now currently it is the middle class which is getting more stronger and stronger, and we will discuss anyway this under Weber also. So Marxian idea of polarization have never come into existence. In fact, this section has got more and more widened even in numbers as well as in their contribution. Okay, now relevance of Marx. So we have discussed about general criticism, we have discussed about contribution, and now we are going to discuss about relevance. Okay, so the question you can see here, this question is completely talking about relevance. If the question is completely talking about relevance, you need to write more content if related to relevance. Otherwise, if the question is normal, then 1 or 2 lines is enough with respect to the relevance. Okay, so what is Marx's theory of alienation? To what extent the theory is relevant in the present society? So you need to divide this into 2 parts, explain the theory, and then you need to talk relevance in detail here. Otherwise, if simply they're asking you the critical analysis or theory, you just need to write 1 or 2 lines as relevance. Maybe you can say, till the time poverty and exploitation exist, Marxian concerns or Marxian theory is relevant. Like that you can conclude. Discuss Marx's theory of historical materialism. Is it relevant today? So here specifically asking about relevance, so you need to focus on the relevance part. You need to talk about the contemporary society and how is it relevant. Is there any alienation in contemporary society? Okay, is there any the problem of class and class struggle is there or not? Right? So in the contemporary society you can understand this in terms of inequality again. Okay, especially in the developing or the third world countries. So we can see this in 2 parts, how a particular theory is relevant and to what extent it is not relevant. Okay, so for example, you may be able to say that Marxian concept of communism, socialism is not relevant nowadays. Even the Marxian understanding of class struggle is not relevant because class struggle is not going to happen and it will never happen. So in that way you can say it is not relevant. Some ideas, the concerns raised by Marx like poverty, exploitation, etc., and the alienation, all these concepts are very relevant also. So relevance, here I have written what is relevance means. To what extent this theory is applicable. Applicability of the theory in the present context for understanding individual and society. Is it applicable or not? Then it is relevant. Or the applicability of the theory in understanding specific situations like problems, specific problems like social change, crime, corruption. So there can be some application level question also based on this Marxian understanding. So the corruption explained with the Marxian perspective. Like that can be asked. So you can connect it with alienation, you can connect it with economic infrastructure. Okay, so you can connect it with social being, the greed of the social being. All those ideas you need to bring in if the question is asked about corruption. It can be asked, all these social problems, any social problems can be actually answered in a Marxian perspective. So Marxian perspective is already known to you now. Okay, so then the extent of use made by the future theorist of the theory. So these are the 3 dimensions in which you can actually understand the relevance. To what extent you can explain or understand the society, okay, so then the extent of use actually made by the future theorist. So just now only I have talked about critical school, Frankfurt School, neo-Marxist and feminist, Marxist, feminist. All these are using this Marxian assumptions only. So in that context, this is too much is there, too much content is there for you. Now application in the future. So now again I've given you the answer, but see, this answer actually should come from within. You should be in a position to write. You can read, you can understand, but all these things you don't want to reproduce exactly the same, but understand, and you should be in a position to write. Okay, so although Marx has been criticized on number of accounts, but his theories are still considered relevant. Various theories like historical materialism, class struggle and alienation can be used to understand the society and individual today. For example, Marxian theories have been applied to understand the emerging world order by the world system theorist. Theory by Immanuel Wallerstein is quite famous in this regard. So you can just write this as an example, and this theory you will be studying in the 10th chapter. Okay. Similarly, Marxian ideas have been found highly relevant in understanding the dynamics of present society. Postmodern theorists like Baudrillard and Bach have used the concept of hyper-reality to explain the exploitative system generated by the MNCs. Hyper-reality means you create a hyper-reality through the advertisements, etc., and you can start selling the products. Okay, so like this Fair and Lovely and all those will create a hyper-reality, and they instigate the people to buy their product. In the present society, Marxian idea of alienation has been found highly relevant. Where? In the IT jobs, IT sections, understanding individual and related issues. Various studies on social consequences of IT use the theory of alienation to explain the isolation and the growing psychological disorder due to excessive use of computers, mobile phones, social media platforms, etc. Various crimes like corruption, murders, theft, etc. can be best explained by using this concept. Thus, it is said that Marxian theories are always be relevant up till the time poverty and exploitation exist. If nothing is there with you to write, you at least write this point. Okay, poverty and exploitation is there means Marxian theories, Marxian concept, the emancipatory concerns raised by Marx, all are relevant at any point of time in history, at any situation. The relevance of this theory echoes in the welfare policies of the states nowadays and the continuous modification in the capitalist society witnessing. So that itself will tell you the relevance of Marx. The welfare policies of state and also the modification in the capitalist system. The labor welfare legislations can be attributed to Marxist ideas. Apart from these, existing theoretical perspectives frequently use Marxian assumptions to develop more practical understanding of society. For example, theory of class and class struggle is still relevant for understanding patterns of inequality, especially in the developing and underdeveloped countries. Thus, it is said that howsoever deficient Marxian theories may be in understanding the present reality, still the policy makers and the theorists cannot afford to ignore the questions raised by Marx. So, that's the general criticisms, or that's the general criticism and the relevance part. Just 1 minute. So if you talk about specific criticism, like we can talk about 2-3 from each, and that's enough. You will see a lot of criticisms. In fact, I have given you in the notes also at least 6-7 from each I have given, but 1 or 2 is enough, because general criticism itself is there with higher validity and higher authenticity. That has to be there, like giving importance to conflict, focusing on macro. Okay, so he's a reductionist, the theories are not relevant. That itself has to be incorporated in your answer. So maybe 1 or 2 is enough. So you can talk about view about superstructure. View about superstructure. Okay, and secondly, that means view about superstructure means superstructure is actually shaped by the economic infrastructure, and superstructure is helping in the functioning, but that is not the case. In the modern society, superstructure is playing the most important role. That you can write. Secondly, there is a concept of Asiatic mode of production that is practiced in Asian societies, where the king control everything, and king will distribute based on the people need and everything. So instead of feudal society, in the Asian society it was this mode of production. Okay, so the typical feudalism that Marx is talking about have never practiced in the Asian societies. So that is also a criticism. So the universal applicability of this theory is actually a question. Okay, then Marx is talking about internal factors only when he is discussing about change. That is the economic condition, the material factors, the production process, the contradiction. But there can be some external factors also in change. It can be war or anything. So third, finally, when you talk about this capitalist and the worker, nowadays even the capitalist is also see, one more point here is the worker also have the stake in the company, especially because of the share market and all. In the present society, if you see the worker, the company in which he is working, he also have share. So there is no antagonist cooperation. It is actually both are cooperating. Even the worker also want to get the profit, because if the company is profitable, he will get the dividend. So to what extent he hold the ownership, the share, he will get the ownership. So he will get the dividend. So the worker also have interest in the company. So there is no antagonist cooperation. Okay. So this is what you can say, decomposition of capital. Decomposition of capital. That means the capital is not only belong to the capitalist. So from workers' contribution is also there within the capitalist. Okay. Then socialist conception is actually not realized. So all these, and the communist idea is a utopian concept. It will never come into practice. So all these are specific criticism with respect to historical materialism. Any one or two is enough for you to write here. Now, again, if you talk about class struggle, so the first criticism you can say class struggle as Marx visualized that it will increase. Instead, it is actually decreased. Class struggle is actually decreased. I have given you a study in the answer, Goldthorpe and Lockwood. You can write that study. Then second point you can write is polarization. It never happened. Polarization does not happen. So you can talk from Weber, and also I have given Dahrendorf here. You can talk from that also. So polarization never happened. That means this concept was not true. Instead, you can talk about this diamond structure or the hexagonal structure. This is what actually the reality. So third one, the role of middle class overlooked. Middle class is getting important in terms of their role, in terms of their numbers. So here polarization means we are only talking about their numbers. Here we are talking about the role. Okay. Then fourth one, he talking about class, but only at the economic domain. So in the next session when we discuss about Weber identify not only economic domain. You may be powerful at the economic domain, a capitalist, but at the same time Weber talk about power and status as other dimensions. So Marx's understanding of class is a monodimensional understanding. Okay, so these are the points you can write. So all these are actually incorporated here. You can see that points. So historical materialism, these are the criticism, the Asiatic mode of production, etc. is here. You can just see that, read this. Nothing else is required. This criticism is directly from this IGNO and Essential Sociology only. Alienation, Karl Popper says alienation can be breeding ground for creative idea also. For example, if you are alienated, you will feel frustrated and you will create new things from your side. So Durkheim had highlighted that anomie and alienation can be corrected by existing structures also. This we will discuss in detail when it comes to Durkheim, and there can be a question on compare the communist idea of Marx and Durkheim. So Durkheim says within the existing structure you can solve the problem of this anomie and alienation, but Marx says you have to change the mode of production. This we will discuss under Durkheim. So the Goldthorpe and Lockwood study is incorporated. So just go through it.